on African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning and welcome to another magical Safari Live adventure, because this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live. And a very good morning and welcome to all of you on our sunrise safari. My name is Jamie, the gentleman behind the camera is VM, and we have exciting things in store for you. Sorry, there's quite a nice sunrise, actually. So while we have a look at the beautiful sun coming over the horizon here in the African bush, if this is your first time experience on our live safari, we are coming to you from Djuma, Arathusa and Cheetah Plains Game Reserves in the Sabi Sand in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And we have so many wonderful things in store for you. What a beautiful morning. Tawny eagle calling, stopping to take in the sounds of the bush for a moment. A very warm thank you to Chris and many others who sent through the updates about what was happening on the Djuma Dam camera last night whilst we were safely tucked away in our beds. Apparently, the youngest Nkuhuma lioness, so a lioness that we see mating with one of the Birmingham boys around 4 o'clock this morning. We're going to try where she's gone. Tracks of the rest of the pride going in that general direction. I've called in Herbie. Sorry about that, everybody. Disappeared off your screen for a second. As you know, there's some every now and again bringing live safari from the middle of the African bush does come with its pros and cons and difficulties and easy things. Easy things, of course, is being able to enjoy the beautiful environment that we were in. Difficult, well, sometimes we have what are known as the attack of the gremlins. Now, just quickly, so that for our new viewers, you know how this all works. Questions at WildEarthTV. Sorry, again, apologies. We seem to be going through some strange signal dips, which is odd because we shouldn't be on Weaver's Nest. This should be fine. This is a mystery to me. Aha. Okie dokie. Alright, we seem to be back up and running. So last night on the Sunset Safari, I'm treated to an amazing experience with Brent on Arathusa with the Tsalala pride, a pride of lions that we hardly ever get to see, and a male leopard that we hardly ever get to see and that I have never seen ever, so that's what I'm really excited about this morning. The Anderson male, rumoured to be the biggest leopard in the Sabi Sand, definitely the biggest leopard in the northern Sabi Sand. Now that's something really exciting we can look forward to. We're not going there straight away. We'll let the other guides go and take their turn, the ones whose property he is on, and then we shall make our way across there a little bit later this morning. Since he does have a massive warthog kill up in a tree, I watched the slow motion footage of him pulling that warthog into the tree. It was unbelievable display of power. Truly phenomenal. To just watch him throw it over his shoulder and climb up the marula tree. See his muscles bunching. Truly spectacular. But when we finished off our sunset safari, we were with Karula and her one little cub. She'd been frantically calling, but she was so full of her impala kill and so warm that she wasn't really getting up and moving around calling for her cubs. She was just lying there going, "Rah, rah," as female leopards do. And her little cubs, behaving like recalcitrant teenagers, refused to come out for the longest time. So it was almost dark when one did arrive, and we had to leave the sighting. So what we're going to do now is just go and investigate her Dacre kill that she sort of not forgot about, but she sort of passed up in favor of the impala kill she made later. Let's go and see if she's remembered if it's there and managed to collect it from the ground where it was dropped onto. While we head across there, it's not just us out and about this morning. Stef is out on foot, which I'm sure you'll find very, very exciting. Let's head across to him so that he can say good morning.
Good morning, yes, and welcome to the bushwalk. It is myself, Stef indeed, and Jandre is on camera today, and we are just about to cross over quarantine and follow up on some lion noises that we heard early this morning. They have started to call south and east of where we are at the moment, and they've moved in this slow arc all the way from Galago Pan last night at the close of safari to around about 3:30, 4 o'clock this morning was the last time I heard them roar at least. And they are now, it seems, in this area that is just in front of us here, around the Rebecca's Road, around Zoe's Road, around Balanites. And there's a good chance, Herbie seems to think that there's a good chance that they're moving off towards Impala Plains. It would be quite rare for them to go to Impala Plains. I mean, I can't remember when the last time they were at Impala Plains in actual fact. I see Jandre busy nodding his head over there saying he agrees with that particular statement. So who knows what's happening, you know? With the flush in the grass that we've had over here, we've had this influx of herbivores, and you know, it's atypical to what's been happening around us. South in the Sabi Sands, there hasn't been any rain, the grass hasn't even flushed there, and I know from Hoedspruit, where I was over the weekend, not a single blade of green grass to be seen anywhere. In between us and Hoedspruit, it rained a little bit, northern Manyeleti, in the Timbavati a little bit, and there we have a bit of grass, but nothing that's going to be or pulling the animals from here in that direction at least. So I'm not expecting lions to move far from water, is I think the point that I want to try and make, and I'm expecting them to sort of be within a mile or so of the water, the permanent water that's left. So the permanent water that we have at Vuyatela and the permanent water that we have at Galago, with a few pans and muddy wallows that are interspersed sort of and dotted around the bush here. But what a fantastic morning. The sun rose a bright red ball, around about 72 degrees Fahrenheit at least, about 22 degrees centigrade at sunrise this morning, which is usually, for me at least, the coldest time of the day. And generally what happens when you have a red ball arise up over the horizon, it heralds a weather change. So I don't remember seeing the weather forecast at least predict anything until the end of next week, but you know, we get influenced quite heavily here by the Indian Ocean and Mozambican weather patterns rather than South African weather patterns, especially over spring and summertime. And I think that that's probably what's happening here. We're getting some type of weather system coming in from the sea, which is all good. It adds a nice spice to things. All right, have a look over there. That is probably about 400 or 500 yards from us. At the moment, on the other side of the valley, we have a herd of elephant. Now that is such a lovely sighting this time of the morning. We are, of course, on foot. We are unescorted. It's just 3 of us, made up of myself, Jandre and Herb. Oh, we've got elephant in a massive arc around us. Basically, from here all the way to there, I've just heard an elephant give this rumble. So if there are lions in the area, these elephant will definitely chase them away. So elephant and lion have this understanding here. Lion get out of the way and elephant do what they want, I think is basically what the rule of thumb is. But with young calves in a herd, elephant get quite aggressive with lion here, and I think it's because the bush is so thick and offers lions a nice hiding place, and obviously lion are capable of killing elephant. They don't usually kill elephant here. I think in all the years I've been guiding, I've only heard of elephant being taken down by male lion coalitions. I haven't heard of prides of lion here taking down elephant at all, in actual fact. But nevertheless, I do see elephant chasing lion often. And lions generally get out of the way. They don't run panicky into the bush. They sort of just walk around and go back to the shade that they were lying in most of the times anyway. Now, what to do with elephant that are in such a big arc in front of us? Obviously, wind direction is key. Now, you have seen me a couple of times with elephant on foot. Sometimes we're far away, sometimes we're close by, but always our reaction is governed by the wind direction. Now, in our favor, so that's a good thing. So that's like rule number one when we're approaching elephant. You want to try and make sure that the wind is always gusting away from them and not from you to them. And in this particular instance, the wind is gusting up the valley and should give us a nice, safe area to approach where you're looking at the moment. I know that area pretty well, and there is a distinct lack of termite mounds, noticeably high termite mounds at least anyway, in that area, which makes approaching them fairly dangerous. I'm just scanning them now to see exactly how many elephant we're dealing with here. So next to the little ash bag that I carry, the binoculars are a tool of the trade, something very important to have. I'm noticing, at least anyway, the bush in front of us looks clear. Looks like these elephants are sort of going towards Balanites Road. Alright, now it looks pretty clear for us. I think let's chance crossing the drainage line here in front. Of course, we need to keep an eye open for these guys. Bumping into elephants and straggling or stragglers, young males, old males, females with baby calves, always dangerous, you know. Now, Jason, good morning, Jason. You've asked me what's the scariest moment I've ever had in the bush. Jason, to be quite honest, I'm quite a nervous character actually. I've had many scary moments in the bush. But I suppose the one that comes to mind, the most recent one that comes to mind anyway, is one that happened with us on a walk just last week. We were walking along a drainage line, the same drainage line, the same drainage line that feeds the Mulwati and comes down Gari Cut line. But we were in the thick block on the other side of the drainage line. I was with Jandre and we were with Rexon, and we came around a bush, and literally in front of us, walking towards us, and no more than 20 or 30 yards away, was a herd of elephant of about 10 or 15 elephant. And we had a termite mound behind us, which we retreated to, which covered our shape a little bit. But the herd was around us, and when I mean around us, in an arc probably this wide in this direction, and that made it very difficult for us to stay in that particular position because we would have been surrounded by elephant. And by the time they realized that we were there, we would have been way too close to females with a bunch of calves. And so what I decided to do, which is the right thing to do with elephant, is create distance between the older females with their calves as quickly as you can. And although we walked directly towards some young male elephant at the time to get to a termite mound behind them, it was, of the two choices that we had, either stay or move, it was the safest choice we had. So we basically walked straight at two young male elephant, who didn't actually see us in the end, to be quite honest, which was quite fascinating. They were busy feeding in the grass, didn't even notice us walking probably less than 10 yards away from them. And we walked up onto a termite mound, and these elephants literally walked to within 5 yards of us, walked around the termite mound, didn't even know we were there, and left without them knowing we were there. Just one elephant, I think, caught scent of us as we passed him, put up his head and gave a little bit of a, "Ooh, there's a human here somewhere close by," and then ended up walking back to his mother's. They stayed in the area, they didn't even know we were there, which is exactly how we like to do things out here. So I'd say that in recent times, that was probably the scariest thing that's happened to me. Yeah. All right, now we are going to send you back over to Jamie, who is on search for Karula this morning, so that she can give you an update.
So, searching for Karula, and we've come across an interesting sight. Sorry, these shoes collect sand quite easily. I've just been going for a walk through this drainage system, or this river system, to where Karula had her Dacre kill. And what's interesting about it is that it's back in the well, what's left of it is back in the tree. And I've just been for a walk, distracted by a vulture flying overhead. I've just been for a little bit of a walk, and I can't see any sign of her, just fresh tracks moving out of this river system. So I'll show you what's left of her Dacre kill. Still lots of sand in my shoes. It looks like it's just 2 dangling legs, and it still smells a little odd around here, but that makes sense since that Dacre carcass was left for a day and a half before she started feeding on it. I think she did come through last night, and I think between the 3 of them they actually finished that entire Dacre off. But that means with a belly full of impala and a belly full of Dacre, I don't think she's going to be going terribly far. There it is. That's, I think, all that is left. Dangling from the tree. 2 little Dacre legs. And that's that. Always a macabre sight. Okay. Oh, there's more there. So where is she? Has she gone to go and fetch the cubs, maybe? That's very confusing. I thought I saw more initially when I was walking. And I came back to the car. Well, this is confusing. She wouldn't leave it. She wouldn't have abandoned that. Leopards are not fussy about what they eat, and the fact that it's a little bit rotten would not have been a deterrent at all for our Queen Karula or any leopard. They don't mind rotting food. They don't mind rotting meat. So it's not that she's abandoned it. She's clearly gone to the trouble of putting it back in the tree. But where's she gone? I don't quite understand. I would have expected her to be somewhere at the base, but I've just walked around here and she's not here. I can guarantee I would have seen her because she would have moved with me walking in that particular spot. Karula's very, very relaxed on foot, but there's only so relaxed a cat can be. Maybe she's gone for a drink. That doesn't make much sense either. Let's follow her tracks around a little bit, the freshest tracks that I can see, which are... Where were they again? I've got them here. Try and just show you. Here we go. Beautiful fresh tracks in the sand. Those are definitely from this morning. Sorry, my car's rolling. Just get out quickly, just briefly, to show you what that is for new viewers, because that does really not make any sense unless you are familiar with leopard tracks. Okay, climb around here. So this is the leopard track that we're looking at, with 4 toes over here and the back of the foot falling here. And the reason I know this is quite fresh is, first of all, it's on top of all of the other tracks, and second of all, this is quite a dense sandy soil, which means that it doesn't have the crisp, clear outline that a fresh leopard track would have in soft sand. And she's going straight up this way. Perhaps she stashed the cubs elsewhere. She's not looking at me there, is she? No. You never know with Karula. Let's go see if we can follow them for a little bit and figure this mystery out. Either way, the fact that the carcass is in the tree is a very good sign. It does mean that she's coming back. One way or another, she'll be coming back. She might have decided to keep the Dacre for dessert, gone off in search of the main course again. Even if the Dacre is a little bit past its sell-by date. Okay, let's go and investigate. There are tracks leading straight up towards Elephant Carcass Road. Michael, you've said perhaps something disturbed her and she moved away. Maybe the young lioness and the Birmingham male. Not a bad suggestion, in that the tracks were heading in this very direction. These are cub tracks as well. These are tiny little tracks. So there were tracks of those lions moving in this direction, but they don't come all the way here. Perhaps she was sort of preemptive in them approaching her or approaching the area that she was in, and decided for safety's sake to move the cubs away. That's possible, but chances are what she'd probably have done is tried to stay hidden and secret rather than exposing herself to any kind of a risk. I wonder if this could be a cub going off on an adventure. No, they wouldn't walk all along an open, exposed road like that. That doesn't make sense. The cubs are getting more and more adventurous, but it doesn't make sense to me that they would be that adventurous, that silly and exposed. She's here somewhere. These tracks are crisp fresh. They've left this morning. Not quite sure why. She could be under any of these bushes. Sitting with a full belly, perhaps. This road gets a little bit rocky here. I can still see the odd toe. Not a bad suggestion, Michael. It makes sense, I guess. Maybe she killed something else last night and she's taken the cubs to that rather. The mysteries of the leopard mind. If only we could think like them for a day, perhaps we'd understand what was going on here. Like why, for example, there are now tracks going this way. Hold on, Michael. Just looking at what's happened here. You're right. Or at least there was an overlap between lions and leopards earlier. I'll show you exactly what I mean in these tracks. And Riola Oha, you want to know if we can tell the time of the tracks when the cats came by. To an extent, yes. Usually within a sort of 6, depending on the substrate, between a 6 to 12 hour margin. If it's nice fresh sand and if it's a windy day, we can usually narrow it down to a couple of hours. Sometimes though you just get an instinct that tracks are very, very fresh, which is what I felt with the tracks back there. Now what I need to figure out, oh, we've got a puzzle here. This needs some serious work, this concentration. Okay, so what we need to figure out here, let me try not to stand on any of the evidence or a leopard cub, just checking. So what we've got here, I'm trying to think of where the clearest example is going to be. Can you see this one, Viam? That one. If I move my shadow out of it. So, yeah. So what we've got here is a lion track, much, much larger than that of a leopard, on top of a leopard track going this way. Now, to add to the confusion, so the leopard track, by the way, is here. It's difficult for you to see. This is its toes. This is the back pad. This is where the back pad of the lion has fallen on top of that of the leopard. So this set of tracks was older. 2 sets of tracks going this way. Probably three sets of tracks. Karula and her cubs. And then tracks coming back this way. Now the puzzle, I think she's moving her cubs south away from the lions. I think she brought them back this way for the Deka kill. And Michael, I think you were right. Or it's a coincidence and she just decided to move them south. No, these only 1 set of tracks coming back this way. So did we miss a leopard cub? or two, hiding in the vegetation there. Let's carry on a little bit down the road. This is a proper puzzle. I love puzzles like this first thing in the morning. Brent described it as a morning crossword puzzle, and I couldn't agree with him more. It's exactly what it is, using the clues left behind by the bush to try and figure out exactly what has happened. I think we missed 2 little leopard cubs. That makes sense. I was sort of looking for Karula, but her cubs would be much more shy and instinctively hide away from me without Mom. Okay, well, I try and puzzle out this puzzle. Let's head back across to Stef, and perhaps he has some puzzles of his own for you.
We actually do have some puzzles of our own. Thank you very much, Jamie. We've got the puzzle of the lions that we heard last night and where they've been going. We found a very fresh track of a tiny cub, one of the cubs, just one track. The others have been walking across this very hard substrate. You can have a look at what this looks like. It doesn't leave much of a track at all. You can see even if I try and make a footprint, it's just very faint. Now you can imagine something with a soft pad like a lion coming across there is difficult. So we've actually split away from Herbie, and myself and Jandre are on our way up towards some plains that are just in this area here. We want to go see if those lion tracks cross in that area. But while we're at it, something that's happened in the last couple of minutes is this wind has started. It's quite a weird gusty wind that's coming up of the valley, and we literally felt the first stirrings of it. And as it gusted and puffed into our faces, it brought with the most unbelievably earthy, musty, old smell. And we both sat for at least the last 5 minutes just trying to decipher what the smell was. And we came up to a conclusion. We came up to the conclusion that the warm air that is coming out of all the termite mounds in this particular area, and there's a lot of termite mounds around this drainage line, has been lying quite still and probably collecting in these pockets. And what's happened is the wind gusted this musty smell up towards us and puffed it into our faces. And it was this first sort of, the wind that has come up, cleaning out these pockets of stale and quite stable air that collected over the night. And we were smelling this collection of warm, basically just termite, the wind from termite mounds. I know it sounds pretty weird, but I find it quite amazing trying to decipher things like this. This is quite nice. Here we have what looks to be the beginnings of a rhino midden. Now, why is this not elephant? Well, quite simply put, the black color that we see here is diagnostic for white rhinoceros. And although not fresh at all, this is rock hard. As you can see there, I'm probably taking the skin off of my knuckles doing that. It is almost pitch black. And that is because silica starts to oxidize and creates this black layer on top of rhinoceros dung. And then when we start to pick through it or turn it over, we start to see that there's almost no sticks. Now, at this time of the year, you've seen us pick up elephant dung countless amounts of times. And for those of you who are brand new to the show, you'd be expecting to see literally branches inside dung like this. Whereas here we've only got grass. Hard grass, that is a piece of thatching grass, but nevertheless grass. Except there's a stick. Now that is weird. There you're looking at something that is very rarely seen and quite worrying. The fact that white rhinos are busy eating sticks. And I wonder if that isn't a sign of the times, the drought. I've never seen that in rhino dung before. I'm convinced that this is rhino dung. It absolutely doesn't have the characteristic smell of hippopotamus dung. Hippopotamus dung, because they don't have any glands on the outside of their skin, secrete all of their information, for lack of a better word, into their dung, and it gives hippo dung a very, very characteristic smell, whereas this doesn't have a smell at all, just very grassy. But the fact that we found that stick there blows my mind, actually, to be quite honest. But yes, this looks like the beginnings of a rhino midden. Now, what do I mean by a rhino midden? Rhinos use dung and their dung piles like signposts, like an information board. If you've seen those boards, I've got a memory in my head about a restaurant chain in this country that has this board, and off to one side is the name of the next restaurant in the kilometers, and the name of that restaurant in the kilometers, and sort of North Pole this way, and London that way, and Sydney that way. And rhinos use middens exactly like that. It's a latrine area. They'll come and use a midden. Other rhinos will come and use this midden, this latrine, this toilet area, and in so doing pick up the scent markings and the scent trails and information therefore about the population of rhino in this particular area. And I'm hoping that that this is the beginnings of one of these middens. It's made up of a collection of 2 dungs at the moment, hopefully not from the same individual, otherwise it'll be a bit sad. But yeah, that's basically a rhino midden. Now what else makes middens? Watch out there, genre. Hyena have middens. That's something that's less commonly known. Hippopotamus obviously have middens all over the place. This is a very thorny. Hippopotamus have middens all over the place. Civets have middens. Mongoose have middens. What else has a midden? What else has a midden, John? Impala have middens. There's a good one. So quite a few animals actually use these signposts, these middens, these latrine areas as a way to collect information about different individuals all in one place and make it easier to find and therefore to decide what's around. Now Jason, I'll answer your question in 1 second. I just want to check out. My eye got a... No, it was nothing. There in the distance, you know, every now and again you have to look at things that catch your attention out here in the bush, because it's literally the flick of a tail or an ear catching an odd current of the wind that can give away something that's hiding in the shadows. But Jason, you asked me, what is a rhino's digestive system like? Inefficient is probably the word that comes to mind the quickest. So rhinos are hindgut fermenters, the same as warthog, hippopotamus and elephant. And what that means is that, and zebra by the way. Now what that means is that they can take in a large volume of food. They can take in food of varying degrees of nutritional content. So unlike an impala or a wildebeest or a bushbuck for that matter of fact, that has to have it can only eat highly nutritious leaves and then leaves and plants from a climax species. Rhino can eat species of grass and plants that are subclimax, that are even down to pioneer level. They don't have to be high in nutritional value. And they have a digestive system that works inefficiently but can consume large volumes of material and extract not a lot of nutrition from it, but whatever there is there. And they produce massive amounts of dung because of it. And they also get quite bloated. It's quite a gassy process. And you'll notice that things like rhinoceros, elephant, one of the classic ones is a zebra with their belly tummies. To a certain degree, warthog, although warthog can look quite skinny in the droughts, all have these distended bellies, and it's because of this gas that they produce that they get these big, round, rotund bellies. That's and also the volume of food that they eat as well. So I suppose they don't have a ruminating stomach, or they don't have a ruminating digestive system, so they don't chew the cud. Food just constantly goes in and food just constantly comes out, and they manage to get all their metabolic energy needs from that process. Alright, now we are going to carry on hugging the edge of this drainage line, having a look at tracks that are hopefully going to cross our feet at any time of this lion pride. We'll keep you updated. We're going to send you over to Jamie. He's got a little surprise for you.
Ta-da! Not so much a surprise. I started driving along Twin Dams Road, suddenly realized I was forgetting one crucial piece of evidence, and turned around and went straight back, because the tawny eagle was sitting in a separate tree to the one with Karula's kill, which told me one thing and one thing alone: she was still there. So she watched me walk past her, she watched me walk under her kill, she watched me walk past her cubs, And she didn't do one thing. She is such an even-tempered leopard. She really, truly is. She's a wonderful girl. It would have been nice if she'd popped her head up, though. It would have been slightly easier to see her. Since I poked my nose right over that drainage line wall, I must have just missed her. Both cubs are here. We just can't see them at the moment. Sierra, you wanted to know if I ever get nervous getting out of the vehicle with a leopard. No, not really. I don't think I get nervous. I think it's very important to remember that they are very wild animals and they are unpredictable, so you can't take anything for granted, in the sense that you've got to be cautious in the way that you approach things. I've had a few very close surprises, because leopards often sit still if they think that you haven't seen them. They sit still until you're right next to them, which can make for some interesting moments. I'm going to go and see Anderson later, hopefully, fingers crossed. I want to see if I feel differently once I've seen him, because he's got a very different face. He's got quite I think he's got quite a sinister face from the screenshots I've seen. And we were discussing last night about the fact that he's absolutely fine on foot, but he's very, very intimidating. Karula's intimidating as well. I don't know. I think it's just that we've become accustomed to her and each other, and we don't have too much of a problem with her. So you should always be wary in the bush. There's no point in being blasé about things, and there's nothing quite so scary as a leopard coming out of the bushes going brrrr with straight legs and lips curled, which Shadow's done on occasion, not to me, but to some of the other guides. So yes, I suppose it's honest to say yes, occasionally we get nervous, but not really so much when tracking leopard, I find. Hello, girl. Where are your babies? I've just called a taxi into the sighting, and he's trying to get hold of me. And unfortunately, right now, the radio comms are a bit blocked up for me to be able to talk to him. I'm just waiting for my turn. So if I go quiet for a second, it's just because I'm listening to the Game Drive channel. You see, she's looking backwards and forwards at her kill, and then towards the direction where we saw her cubs. Oh dear. I'm trying. It's so funny. They're all asking questions of each other about the situation, and I'm trying to tell them what's going on, but I can't. You can see she's still full. She's not all that hungry. She's still panting, as she was last night from yesterday's meal. It's truly extraordinary how fast these cats are going through food at the moment. With her two little cubs, he's keeping them very well fed. Hello to Jenna, who is a new viewer. Jenna, it's lovely to have you on board with us. Jenna, you wanted to know how old Karula is. And the answer to that is she is 12 years old. Actually 12, close to 12 and a half now. She must be 12 and a half now. And she's got two gorgeous 8-month-old cubs who are somewhere here. Now she's gone round. I think she's going to go up the tree. Let's see, where are... Oh! Spur fowl! I thought for a second that movement was one of the little ones. Let's go see around if we've got a better visual. And how do we tell the leopards apart? Just bear with me one moment, because I want to get a view of Karula so I can explain this to you more clearly. Oh, goodness. I missed my opportunity. Tried. Okay, I hope she's going to go into the tree, and hopefully the cubs will come round to that side of the... There's a big ditch and then a big sort of rise on the other side. I'm just trying to think which is going to be our best approach. Jenna, just in terms of identifying the individual leopards, once you spend a little bit of time with them, it's actually really easy to get to know the individuals. They start to become as unique looking to you as human beings, just from spending lots of time with them. They've got different faces. The official way, or the sort of the scientific way, is to look at the spot patterns on the whiskers, the top row of spots, so you can identify, because they've got different numbers of spots. Different individuals have different numbers of spots. So, for example, a 3-3 leopard will have 3 spots on the right, 3 spots on the left, in the top row of the whisker spot patterns. A 2-3 will have 2 on the right, because it starts with the right-hand side, left for you watching through the camera, 2 on the right-hand side of the animal, and 3 on the other. I prefer, personally, to look at identifying spots that are slightly easier to see, rather than the whisker spots. For example, if we look at Karula, and I'll show you, hopefully show you now, Karula's got a wow on her forehead. She has the word wow in her spots. And when I first heard about that, I didn't quite believe it. Once you see it, you'll be converted. Absolutely the case. Tax for Jamie. She's here in the Mulwati drainage on the western side, just as you go in from Spaghetti Junction towards Vulture's Nest. The Bumba's in the Shlashla, and both Buntwans are here, but I've only got visual for now of Mufazi in the Shlashla. Here we go. Oh, no I don't. I thought I only had a view. Oh, wonderful. Visual of both Buntwans. Yay, look at this. Hello, gorgeous. I'm sorry if I gave you a little bit of a fright this morning, although you don't seem to be any the worse for the wear. Giving a little, I think it's little daughter, a bath. Where are you going, girl? Is she going off once again? Or is she just going to go? Yep, she's going to go lie down. The one little cub is here, tail twitching, none the worse for its encounter with a human being on foot this morning, next to Mom's kill, and one up in the tree. My suspicion would be it's the little male, just going off behavior that we've seen. He's bigger, he's much, much bigger, and he seems to spend a great deal of time eating, as all teenage boys do. He's a growing little boy. He's already, I think, about a third bigger than his sister, and he's thoroughly tucking in. So there we go. Mystery of the morning is solved. Karula did not leave the daycare to go to waste. She did not forget where she put it. Not that I thought that she would, actually. And luckily for her, despite the fact that a bird had knocked it out of the tree, she managed to return in time before the hyenas had managed to find it. All in all, it's worked out very well for the royal family. Hard to believe. We were just sitting here a few moments ago. Sorry, everybody. Taxon's just called me in to say that there are lions at Galagopan. Goodness gracious, it's all happening here this morning. I'm going to be dashing around like a crazy person, the only one on the vehicle. Natalie in California. Of course, we've got exciting things planned for this morning, and I am definitely going to be going towards Anderson at some point, because I'm so keen to get a chance to see this leopard I've heard so much about. You want to know if the cubs are in danger with Anderson being in the area? No, they're not at all. He's actually not in the area. He is completely on the other side of Arathusa, so I don't want to take our eyes off our leopards for now, but I will show you a map of where Anderson is and where Karula is now. It's his standard territory. It's on the western fringes of his territory. It's where he overlaps with Tingana. And whilst he might put a little bit of pressure on Tingana, in terms of just moving slightly more into his territory. He's not a risk to these cubs. He's not going to come all the way here. You might even find that Karula has mated with him before, but I don't think so. I don't think we have any record of that, of Karula mating with Anderson. A female leopard will mate with as many males as possible, so as to trick them all into thinking that her offspring belong to them. Very sensible tactic, because of course the biggest danger to leopard cubs is a strange male leopard. But no, you can rest assured, Anderson is very far away. He's probably, as the crow flies, he's probably about 7 to 8 kilometers away from where we are now. In terms of leopard territories, that's relatively massive. Anderson hardly even comes onto Arathusa, let alone towards Djuma. That's got to be the little boy, tucking into that dacre with such relish, using his tail as a counterbalance, and those massive oversized paws to grip onto the jackalberry tree. A perfect leopard spot. Now, for those of you that are only just meeting the royal family, and I know that there are a few of you, that is Hosanna, the little boy, and Shungile, who's just lying down now, is the Karula's little female. Shungile means beautiful, Hosanna means little chief, which I love. I love that as a name, the little chief. She's gorgeous, isn't she? She's got a W on her forehead, speaking about identifying features, and I actually got so distracted I completely forgot about that question. My apologies. I was going to show you the wow on Karula's forehead, but I'm sure many of our viewers will be happy to supply you with images that demonstrate what the wow looks like, because at the moment Karula has tucked herself behind a bush. We will keep repositioning as the morning goes on and spend a little bit of time with them. Actually, we spend as much time as possible with them. It's not often Karula comes to this part of her territory anymore. She spent a lot of time with these cubs to the south of our Traverse area, which is why opportunities like this are truly special. And we've actually watched these cubs grow up. Brent was fortunate enough to find Karula the day the cubs were born. Just tiny little, barely visible bundles of fluff. And then we didn't see them for 2 months. And they popped out once again. We were so concerned about them. But Karula proving once again that she is a very successful female leopard, managed to keep them secret and safe, and about 2 months old we started to see them again. Hard to believe that it's the same leopard cubs. They've just grown so much. Hosanna is rapidly approaching his mother's height, if not her full size. And Ravi, with our leopard safely ensconced up the tree and the mystery of the lions coming through on top of the leopard tracks, he wants to know if we've ever seen lions hunting leopards. Yes, we have. And in fact, not too long ago, we actually had an almost terrifying near miss with Tingana and the youngest lioness from the Nkuhuma pride. So Tingana is the dominant male leopard in this area. His territory fringes on that of the Anderson male. We just happened to be following Tingana. He was hungry. He just finished mating with Shadow. So he was looking for food and he was distracted. And we were just following him through a thicket, and all of a sudden this lioness appeared out of nowhere. She had such a head start on him that she got to her full speed, which meant that he had to really seriously launch himself towards a marula tree. Very lucky for him that marula tree just happened to be there, and very considerate of the marula tree. He then performed one of the most spectacular leaps and managed to scale about 10 meters in roughly 3 bounds, and the lioness's momentum carried her halfway up the marula trunk, and then she tumbled back down. Now, one thing that leopards have over lions is the fact that their tree climbing ability is far superior. But it's not uncommon to see a leopard trapped on the outer fringes of a tree, so not these big comfortable boughs that Hosanna is on now, but to be trapped on the skinny branches at the end, barely keeping its footing with a lioness or a lion climbing into the trunk of the tree. Because lions can climb, just not very well. So yes, we have seen that happen on Djuma. And it was I have to say, it was quite terrifying. It was not so long ago. Probably about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago. My sense of time is not fantastic. Hey, leave some for your sister. I'm just going to chat on the Game Drive channel. While I do that, let's head across to Stef, who's found something wonderfully small.
No, thank goodness Taxon called in that update that the tracks at least of those lions are heading back towards the Galago Pans, because it frees me up to do what I love doing, and that's spending time with my face mere inches off of the ground or from a plant and looking at the other side of these game drives that we do, and that's the smaller side and the sort of the less often shown side. Now, ants are some of the most advanced social creatures, or have some of the most advanced social around an ant's nest. Gives you the most wonderful perspective about what is around and what is happening in this particular patch of bush. Now, we found some ants. What species of ant they are, I have absolutely, but we can tell from the nest around, or the refuse dump around their hole. This is their nest here. The entrance to their nest, they've got 2 burrows. One is here, and the other one is here. And they have a refuse dump that extends on the periphery of their nest. That's about here. Now, ants are fastidious at keeping their nests clean, and what you can tell from their refuse dump is very similar to what archaeologists and anthropologists can tell from our refuse dumps, from early human settlements in caves and around ancient lakes and riverbeds. The first thing they look for is the refuse dump to go through the pickings and see what was there. And I can say, and I'm going to see if I can find one for you, that these particular ants are preying on a termite colony that's close by. And I can tell you that because all of these little golden globes that you see there. So let's see if I can keep my shaky hand still long enough to allow Jandre to zoom in there. Can you see that? That is the head, the empty head of a termite. Can you believe that? There and there and there and there and there and there and there. There's so many, it's hardly, I can hardly. And here, look here. Here's one coming in with the termite right here. So they look like harvested termites, and these ants are bringing them into the nest. Now, the ants themselves bring bits and pieces of the termite to their larvae, to their babies. What happens to this ant? Here comes this titanic struggle. You also the Anderson male yesterday, or for those of you who were lucky enough to watch the show yesterday, saw the Anderson male carry a warthog, a fully grown warthog, into the top of a marula tree. Oh, excuse me. Haven't quite shaken my man flu, as Jandre says. And you can have a look at this particular ant performing what is arguably a more titanic feat, in that particular termite wasn't just carried up to the top of a tree. That particular termite, weighing exactly the same as that ant, the same or roughly the same as the Anderson male, that particular ant had to go down into her burrow and in relative means several miles away from here, with his teeth, that was the same weight as what he is, drag it out of the burrow without getting eaten by that thing's friends, and then dragged it all the way back here, several kilometers, to then pull it into the nest. I mean, relatively speaking, it's just something that's absolutely titanic. I just love these types of things. Now, it doesn't look like they're feeding on anything else except for these termites. It'll be quite interesting to actually see where they are fetching these termites from, to be quite honest. And they all seem to be coming from this area. So let's go and have a look. when I'm looking up, I'm noticing that the only place that it could be is that elephant dung over there. Let's go see if we can see some of these ants. Let's see if we can see them here. There's the termites' nests. You can see that they slowly but surely turning this piece of elephant dung into sand with their tunnel construction. And I'm almost certain that if we just spend some time here, we'll find the source of these ants' larders, for lack of a better word. Anna Marie, I absolutely agree with you. It is amazing how strong ants are relative to their size. I mean, some ants, like leafcutter ants, and some of the more predaceous ants out here can carry several hundred times their own body weight in their jaws. Not quite as strong as the dung beetles. The dung beetles here still push several thousand times their own body weight in terms of mass around. And they are the strongest animals on the planet, but ants, absolutely. Now, I know for a lot of you looking at these ants is probably not the best way of spending your time, so we won't look for too much longer and we'll find something else interesting over here. There's a snail shell that has been crushed, but it left the inside of the central column intact for us to have a look at. How perfectly is that formed? It's the inside of a snail shell. And the central column, let's turn it around, that's the one side. There would have been the entrance where the snail's head used to be. And that would have been the inside of the curl. How cool is that? Looks like something out of the sea. It's crazy. Anyway, we're going to carry on with our day. I'm going to see if I can cough out this frog I've got stuck in my throat. We're going to send you over to Jamie and Karula. See you later.
I know that feeling very well at this time of year with all the pollen that's about. In the meantime, Hassan is not doing much coughing and lots of eating, and that dacre looks as though it's about to go sliding off the jackalberry tree. Luckily, the cubs have got slightly more skilled at keeping the kills in trees, although there's the odd accident every now and again. Luckily, Mom is always around to pick up their mess. Or, you know, snatch up the bits that they drop, and that she can have some food as well. Remarkably generous in the last few times that we've seen her. She kills something, feeds off it a little bit, and then goes to fetch her cubs, and immediately lets them eat first. What you seen? What's there? Looking about and across. Already, at 8 months of age, very, very alert to the sounds of the bush. And I suppose if they weren't, they probably would not have survived this long. It's amazing the instinct of leopard cubs to keep their ability to keep themselves safe and out of danger. Now, Hosanna seems to have a bottomless pit for a stomach. I cannot believe, after the stomach that he was sporting yesterday, with full of impala, that he is still as hungry as he is. Obviously lots of growing to do. Trying to pull the dacre back into a more appropriate position. Our dacre is not a particularly big meal for 3 leopards, including 2 growing teenagers. This is going to be gone by this afternoon. But they might stick around. They've got such full bellies. I don't think anybody's going to feel like moving anywhere. It's kind of like trying to have a nap after a very, very large Sunday lunch. You can see the flies buzzing around. The carcass, because it was left for so long, has attracted lots and lots of attention from the insect life around here. Lots of carcass flies with their bright red heads. Anthony, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. I'm not sure if yours is a name I've heard before. Perhaps this is your first time on our live safaris, in which case we would like to extend a warm welcome. I hope you are enjoying this sighting as much as I am. Anthony, you want to know why do they put the food in the tree? Well, that is the very clever thing about leopards. First of all, interestingly enough, they don't do it in places where they are the apex predator, where they are the only predator there. And there are lots of places where it's only leopards and cheetah in an area. Then they don't need to bother. But in a reserve like the Sabi Sand, where there are marauding lions and hyenas, and let me tell you, lions are some of the biggest scavengers out here. They can't run the risk of losing their kills. So particularly with hyenas, because lions can climb and occasionally do try and steal leopard kills out of trees, but particularly because of hyenas, a leopard will drag a carcass into a tree to protect it. It's basically like storing it away in a lockable pantry. Or perhaps lockable pantry is a much better comparison. It's a very good way of keeping it safe. Now, Karula actually put this dacre in the tree 2 days ago. It was knocked to the ground by a tawny eagle because she got distracted, which is fair enough, by the adult impala that she caught. Luckily for her, no hyenas managed to sniff it out, and she was able to recollect it and put it back up into the tree for her cubs. Now, the ability of leopards to hoist is truly incredible. You might not have been watching yesterday's sunset safari, I assume that you weren't, but if you could have seen the footage of Anderson hoisting a massive warthog into a tree, it gives you an idea of just how powerful these animals truly are. Their neck muscles and the muscles in their legs and shoulders. It's basically carrying, in some cases, the equivalent of their own body weight straight up a vertical climb, almost vertical climb, with it in their mouths, holding it up. That display of strength is, I've had to hoist impalas, sedated impalas into the back of vehicles before, for various reasons, to sort them out, to help treat them and so on. They're not light. It's not an easy task. And leopards are truly amazing. This dacre didn't present Karula with any problems, but even then, that's just testament to her strength. Imagine taking a 12 kilogram, or I'm not quite sure what sort of flour bags you have where you are, but bags of flour, the standard 12 kilogram bag of flour. Imagine putting that in your mouth and then climbing up a tree. I know that's what they're built for. We're not built for the same thing, but it's still very mightily impressive. Right, Hosanna, while you snack away, I'm going to go and have a look at your mum, and maybe your sister, depending on where she is. Let's do a quick reshuffle, reposition, and just go and have a look at what Karula's up to. Perhaps she'll grace us with a glance at her face, and we can talk more about the wow on her forehead. Murray in Illinois, this is a very good question, and that is because, Karula's approaching 12 years old. She's not old, but she's not young for a leopard either. You wanted to know, is there a kind of a menopause for individuals that live slightly longer than the norm? And yes, all female mammals will go through some form of menopause if they reach that point in their lives. I could see the sister, but she's just so hidden. There's the back of Karula, just talking about her and potential menopause. Because, of course, all female mammals are born with the number of eggs that they're going to produce in their lives. And at some point, that will run out. So, yes, they will go through a type of menopause, but generally, from my understanding, older age usually catches up with them first. It's a rough life. There's no old age homes out here in the bush. There's no care for the animals. They just have to get on with things. And just like human beings, they lose eyesight, they lose hearing, they lose physical strength and bone mass, and life does get tough. So generally, it's just the fact that they can't sustain themselves in a pregnancy that stops them from falling pregnant. Leopards have been known to give birth to litters, and viable litters that have survived, right up to about 16 years of age, but those are the exceptions rather than the rules. So Karula could go on to have another litter. It is entirely possible. She's still got another at least year tending to these cubs before that thought enters her mind once again. Either way, she has made a remarkable imprint on this area. She's basically supplied this entire place with her offspring. I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. When we look at the leopards that we see regularly, Karula, Tandi, Shadow. Okay, Tingana doesn't count because he's the dominant male leopard. Not that he doesn't count, but he, he's not part of the Karula lineage. Kanuma, Quarantine, Shimambalana, and then a couple of other females that are unrelated. But either way, she definitely has provided the majority of the leopards that we see. Here's a little cub. If we look a little bit to the right, you can just see an ear. Hello, this little sleepy thing. There's Shongile enjoying a nap in the sheltered spot that she's found. Shongila's got a way to go before she first comes into estrus, but when she does, she is fully independent. She will probably take a section of her mother's territory. Now, at the moment, as I said, a lot of this area is populated by Karula's offspring. Now, Lauren, you wanted to know, would her older cubs, so her older generations, potentially mate with her cubs, or her? And yes, they would. That sort of thing is relatively common in the cat world, although that is why males disperse away from their natal, or generally disperse away from their natal range. What have you seen, girl? See how alert she's got. Sorry, hold on, we'll talk about this in a moment. A change in body language. She could even be thinking about breakfast number 2. Let's just let her listen for a moment. The fact that her cubs haven't stirred, but she has, and instant relaxation. I was going to say, probably suggests that it's something she was interested in hunting, but clearly not. So Laura, yes, they're not bound by the same moral codes that human beings are, so they will mate with any available partner, whether or not it includes their sons, their mothers, or their sisters or half-siblings. It does actually regularly occur out here, but nature has evolved a way of creating that instinct within males to disperse away from their natal range to help to prevent that. And for the most part, their genetics are relatively resilient to that sort of thing. It takes a few generations of inbreeding before the negative effects are felt. They are poorly managed, and I mean, to me it is beyond my comprehension. There are poorly managed areas in South Africa, private reserves and such, where the lions have been stuck in the area that they are. They can't disperse because they're in a fenced area, and they have not been managed in a way that provides fresh genetic changes where you'll start to see the effects of inbreeding. Whether it's particularly dwarfism, you get cross-eyed lions, you get and you just generally get the odd problem with the lions themselves. So their genetics are resilient to a point, and then after that it starts to have really negative effects. And of course, within nature, nature's geared towards genetic diversity, because genetic diversity provides resilience. The more differences you have in each individual species, the better the chance that perhaps if there is a disease outbreak, you'll get 1 or 2 individuals that are resistant and therefore save the species. Or you've got animals that are perhaps better adapted to the area that they're in. And that is one of the big reasons why cheetah, there's a lot of... No, you see, she's up again. What you seen, girl? Is it time for breakfast too? Just want to watch where she goes. She's creeping past Shongile. What has she spotted? Now, she could go flat, but I don't think she's going to. I think some poor hapless creature has wandered onto the scene. Now, here's what she's doing. She's doing what all leopards are very, very good at. And it often leads people to dismiss the fact that they are hunting because they think they've just sat down and they're relaxed again. And I experienced this firsthand with that wildcat kill that VM and myself were at not too long ago, where we sat for 2.5 hours with a wildcat that looked like it was sleeping. It was patiently, and it was dozing, but patiently waiting for its prey to get a little bit closer. And that's what Karula's doing now. She's got up and shifted into a better position where she can see, and now she's just waiting to see if whatever it is happens to stumble into her path. You see anything there, Viam? Just moving trees. She's got an advantage in that the wind is blowing quite strongly in one direction, which is going to blow the scent of herself and her kill away. Alright, we're going to sit tight and see what the Queen decides to do. In the meantime, let's head back across to Stef and see what other wonderful, tiny thing he has found.
Now, that glistening blob of resin that you're seeing over there is what caught my eye on this particularly leafless rus that we have here at the moment. And as I came close to it, I see that this beetle, it's a flea beetle, was feeding on that particular sap run. Now, we speak about sap runs quite often, and you're looking at a prime example of what a sap run is. It's every now and again, for some reason that I've yet to fathom, a tree will start to bleed sap. Now, one of the most common ones that we see over here, the weeping boerbean, that endless search it seems to be of mine at the moment. But it looks like it's quite common to a variety of different species. This rus being something that I've never seen before. I've never seen a sap run on a rus like this. And in particular, what's nice is the presence of that flea beetle. Now, this particular year, we've spoken quite a lot about flea beetles, and it's because we just found them. I never even knew that they existed. I've, for the last 20 years, been walking past russes in this particular area without even noticing these little beetles, and they are phenomenally interesting. One of the reasons is that they only sit in this particular area on the rus. They don't sit on anything else. Another thing is that they take a variety of compounds out of the rus, which is actually a benign plant. It can do nothing to us, and turn it into an incredibly toxic compound that is then concentrated in their larvae, in a beetle larvae. So this beetle will, at a point, bury itself in the sand below this rus, in the sand here, and a couple of centimeters below the surface, they will lay a little egg that looks like a round sand-covered capsule, and in it will be a larvae, a worm, and that worm will have taken the compounds from its parent and from the parent plant and have concentrated it and changed it into an incredibly toxic compound. Something that if you squeeze that tiny little worm onto the head of an arrow or onto your spear and you stick it into something here, will cause cardiac arrest in something like a buffalo in about 40 minutes. Can you handle that? I mean, I just think it's some of the most interesting things. All from these tiny little beetles that are pretty inconspicuous. These little flea beetles. Now, another thing that's quite awesome on this particular rus is the fact that here we find some spider web, and in looking for the owner of this spider web, we found a jumping spider that is somewhere here. I think I've given it there we go. Let me see if I can point it out at a piece of stick. Last night, a jumping spider spun this web to stay in, and has this morning decided that it wants to hunt, and it's sitting in the knock of the tree in front of the grass blade there that I have, watching the stick. Let's see if we can get him to turn around and face the camera. These are quite simply my favorite insects on the planet. Have a look at how camouflaged that guy is there. Can you see him? Can you see him there, Jean? There we go. How amazing is that? Obviously, at the moment, hunting on this particular stick, I have no doubt that they are clever enough to realize that this particular rus has a sap run at the moment. That sap will be attracting a multitude of different insects, and this jumping spider is just waiting to catch one of those insects that come in here. Let's see if I can just move him. He got very, very good vision. Let's see if I can move him back into the camera's view again. There you go. Let's see. Can you all see how fantastically camouflaged he is? Or she is. Don't quite know what sex they are. And all those extraordinary long hairs on their head. I just find that amazing. All on this pretty dead bush by all other accounts. I mean, it's not dead, it's obviously quite alive, evidenced by its sap run, but it has not a leaf on it. Wonderful. Alright, let's carry on with our walk. And stand up here after being trapped in its folds. Let's carry on going down. And we're going to cross this drainage line in front of us over here. And I want my wits about me when we do that. The wind has started to pick up and the bushes are shaking around a little bit. So without further ado, you back off to Karula.
Karula for now seems to have given up on the idea of whatever was moving around at the top there, and is now glancing longingly up at her hard-won Dacre that is currently clutched in the jaws of her son, and I think she's actually thinking about going up to join him, which could be interesting. It's amazing how protective leopards start to get over their kills, or at least over their food, even when they are this young. Sure, there's hardly anything left. Poor Karula. Now, just for a moment, let's just talk about the wow on her forehead. Come, girl, and look this way. She will look this way in a moment, and see if you can spot it when she does turn her head, for all of our new viewers. And I promise you, once you've got that imprinted in your mind, you'll never forget what Karula looks like. Oh. Okay, or not. Okay. And she pops herself down there at the base of the jackalberry. Bill, talking about dominance within litters, wants to know if there were two male cubs, would one dominate the other, or would it be a first-come, first-served basis? So it's not quite like hyena cubs, where there's a very, very clear dominance between two individuals of the same sex. Hyena cubs quite literally come out fighting, and already established dominance before they've even started exiting the den site itself. Leopard cubs are slightly different. Hosanna is generally not going to come into conflict with his sister. He might growl and snarl at her if he's feeling particularly hungry, and in that case I suppose he might be displaying it a little bit, but it's not a clear-cut hierarchy. And the same applies with siblings, but what you will see is different characters between leopard cubs. So, for example, Tundi and Shadow have completely different characters. Tundi meaning love. Shadow was actually called Tingana, which meant shy. She was shy when she was a cub. Kunuma in Quarantine, from what I understand, Kunuma always had a slightly more brazen attitude. But for the most part, things are relatively easily settled in leopard families. And it might be one day one cub is top dog, the other day it's another one, but for the most part, one personality just tends to be a little bit bolder. But I don't think I'd describe it as a proper dominance hierarchy. And for the most part, they actually live together quite peacefully, even right up until the point that they disperse and they're still hanging around their natal range. Might even encounter them every now and again, sharing their kills. Leopard's social structure is a curious thing, I find, personally. I think their social structure is quite unpredictable. They're naturally solitary animals, but at the same time, odd things happen, particularly when food is involved, and occasionally mating, but mating's easier to understand. But where food is involved, their dynamics often switch up. You get older males sharing kills with younger ones, sometimes even in a situation where they might not be related, as with Mvula and Sindile not too long ago. And then the story of a Shadow sharing a kill with a Karula, or at least in the same vicinity as Karula and a kill. Yet whenever we see Shadow come onto Karula's territory with Tingana, whenever she's mating with him, you can see Karula's nose is thoroughly out of joint. There's stories of grandmothers adopting their daughters' cubs. There's all kinds of interesting things that leopards do. And David in Napa, speaking of that, and of course competition around food, you want to know why leopards don't eat together as lions do. I think it's just, again, it's the difference of their social structure. And it reduces the competition between them, especially, and also, it's the position that they're feeding in. So it's not that easy for two leopards to feed at the same time in a tree, particularly when the kill is a small kill. When it's on the ground, it's slightly easier, and occasionally they do feed. If it's a big carcass, they do feed from opposite ends at the same time. They don't seem to like being in such close proximity to each other, though, around a kill. They're not as good at sharing. Lion prides, of course, aren't actually all that good at sharing either, although eventually each gets its place. There's a lot of growling and rumbling. Leopards adopt a totally different approach, quite a peaceful approach to meal times, particularly where mother and cubs are involved, or at least what we've seen from Karula. But I've seen mothers and offspring come into conflict before over food. We've seen Shadow snarl at Sindile a few times, and we saw Shadow's young cub a couple of months ago snarling at Mom to keep her away from the kill. I've heard some interesting stories. I was chatting to Tristan from Simbambili last night about Tiani and Saleeshe. Saleeshe is a female leopard to the west. She's moving slightly into Arathusa, but she's generally on the western fringes of our Traverse area. Her daughter, Tiani, is not even fully independent yet. She's still... she's only a year and a half old. She hasn't quite got to that point, although she is getting there, and Saleeshe has been seen mating again, which means that very soon Tiani will be out on her own. What was fascinating about the stories about Tiani, who is rumoured to be Anderson's daughter, and is quite a large female, is that she'll wait for her mother to scent mark, and then she walks up to her mom's scent markings and marks on top of it, and then snarls at her mother whenever her mother comes near it, as if to say, no, this is mine now. Which is interesting behavior. She's developed a technique now, when hyenas steal her kill, if she doesn't actually physically tackle them, if there's too many for her to tackle, because she has been known to take on hyena every now and again, which is extraordinary for a female leopard, she then climbs into a tree, apparently, and just whacks them on the head. So she'll sneak down, whack the hyena on the head, and then run back up the tree again. And sneak down and whack it on the head, and then run back up the tree again. I mean, how's that for personality? That is definitely a leopard with an individual sense of self. The first time I ever saw Tiani, I was on a bumble with the FC ladies, and we were on Simbombili, and there she was. Her mom had lost the kill to the hyenas, and this leopard was sitting within 5 meters of that hyena, seriously contemplating going for it. And that's unusual, especially in females. She's also rumored to have killed an impala when she was 9 to 10 months old. But I mean, look at this. Her Sana is 8 months old. So he's nearly that age now. How on earth she managed that, I'm still not entirely sure. But the guides that say they were there swear that she did that. I doubt it was an adult impala, though. Still, impressive. Anyway, so yes, it's all about leopard characters and personalities, and I do think that leopards, particularly of the big cats, have individual personalities. Mvula's at Sydney's Dam. Yes. Sorry, just bear with me one moment. I just want to... Last station, confirm Ingwe at Sydney's Dam. Do you think it would be visible from the cut line? Copy that, thank you. I've been trying for 2 days to get Mvula on camera. Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you very much, Karula and Cubs. We will return to you. They're not going to be gone by this afternoon, so we will return back to them. It's been so long since we've seen Mvula. We're going to have to do a mad race to get there. I'm so hoping I tried this yesterday. It didn't work out in my favor. He's far away. He's at Sydney's Dam, so we can't go on to Buffelshoek, but I still think it's worth doing. Bye-bye. We'll see you later. And then we can start going to Anderson. I know this is ridiculous, because it's just me, just little old me in the vehicles this morning. And Stef's very kindly given Brent a morning off so that he can have some rest. So it's not a broken car, nor is it a broken Brent. It's just a chance to have a little bit of a breather. Okay, I think we should do it. We've got a mad race ahead of us. So there you go, curious one, and those of you wondering where our second vehicle is, it's just to give Brent a little bit of a break, since, as we've spoken before, we're on skeleton crew, and we've still got rehearsals coming up again next week, so it's just a break. In theory, it'll be my turn tomorrow morning. Okay, I'm going to do a manic race that's going to take me a little bit of time. While we do that, let's go back to Stef for an update.
Now, this gale that's blowing in, of course, that started a little while ago with a gentle puff up a valley, giving us some scent of termite mounds, has now turned into what feels like a hurricane at this particular level. But also, what it's allowed us to do is it's allowed us to view what otherwise would have been invisible. And that is the web of a grass spider. Now, these spiders average some of the fastest spiders on Earth. In actual fact, the grass spider is rated in the Guinness Book of Records, or was at least until the 90s, it was rated as one of the fastest spider on Earth. And I'm going to see if I can entice the spider out just by tickling the web a little bit. Come on. They actually got very good eyesight, and I think she's actually seen me. No, she doesn't want to come out. She's sitting there. No, seen me again. Come on. Now, why they need their speed is basically because this horizontal web traps insects that walk over it. She then comes, before they can loosen themselves, she comes running out across her web, bites them, wraps them up in some silk, and then takes them into her retreat to eat them at leisure. And the dust has stuck to the sticky strands. The dust that's blowing around here now is stuck to these sticky strands, which has unveiled this particular spider to us. Otherwise, these webs are pretty much, the only time you see them is when they go and construct a web inside a piece of dung that is quite stationary. But they're almost all over the place. And it's these webs, as well as the other horizontal webs in the trees, the tropical tent web spiders, that give us those wonderful views on misty mornings when the dew condenses on the web itself, and then we can see them dotted throughout the trees, and it gives you a true impression of how many spiders are actually out there. Now, I don't know the exact amount of spiders per square meter out here in the Kruger National Park. A square meter is basically a yard by a yard, for, just for easy comparison. Not much bigger than the space I'm sitting at the moment, but definitely more than one. I would hazard to guess probably around about a dozen or so spiders per square meter is the average of spiders in the Kruger National Park. And one of the, let's see if she'll come out now. We've given her a little bit of time to acclimatize herself to me. She doesn't seem to be wanting to come out there at all, and I don't want to do any further damage to her web. Not that the wind will do anything less, and not that it's actually detrimental to her. She'll spin up the damage quite quickly. But Jeffrey, you've wanted to know, or good morning firstly, you wanted to know, is the thin abdomen on a spider distinctive between the sexes? Does it mean that it's a male? I would say no, generally speaking, Jeffrey. I would say that by far the better indicator is the pedipalps, which are those two appendages that come out just next to the jaw. On males, the pedipalps tend to be overdeveloped. They tend to have two clubs on the end, or to be long and to be used in displays quite often. And so for me, a distinctive feature of male spiders is these overly developed pedipalps. And in the case of tarantulas, or in the case of baboon spiders, the first set of legs that come out just close to the head have a distinctive spur that comes out of the leg. It looks like a tooth, comes out of the leg, and they use that spur to hold the female's jaws apart so that she don't eat him while they're busy mating. And so male tarantulas or male baboon spiders have that spur on the front of their legs to, like, say, wrestle this female into submission basically and hold the jaws away that she doesn't eat him in half. But I would say by far and wide the pedipalps on the other end of the body, on the head side of the body rather than the thin abdomen. Why would you say the abdomen? It could quite possibly be that female spiders are in general quite large and much larger than male spiders, and relatively speaking a female spider does have an abdomen that looks distended or looks larger than a male. So perhaps that's where you're getting your observation from. I can fully empathize with that. But you also get females that are hungry or have just laid eggs, and in that sense their abdomens will be quite skinny and compressed, really, and so that could confuse things a little bit. But definitely look for those overdeveloped pedipalps and then those mating spurs on the front legs of the baboon spiders. Alrighty, and let's carry on. We have, as you see, made our way back onto quarantine clearings.